Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Ray Lindley, the Executive Director of Array Global, and I'm so happy to see you all here today. We think we have a very exciting presentation for you today, which will hopefully be very helpful to you as you further your career. I have a wonderful relationship with the organization she represents, and I'll talk to you about that in just a little bit. But first of all, let me introduce, as you all know, Dr. Jacob, who is the Associate Executive Director. And Dr. Jake is going to give an announcement about next month's workshop and welcome you also. So Dr. Jake, it's yours.
Well, welcome everyone across the world on Zoom, on Facebook. We have, I know, groups of teachers together in classrooms in various parts of the world. So welcome to you all. This is going to be an exciting workshop, and we're very glad to have Trina with us today. A few different upcoming activities that we have. We only have 2 more weeks left to have your students participate in the Stella Science Fair. So get onto our website. If you have questions, shoot me an email, put it in the chat. If you want to learn more, I can send you to the link to learn more about the Stella Science Fair. This is where your students make a 2-minute video clip about some kind of science project. There are cash prizes, and there are also certificates for every single student that participates. We've done this. This is our 3rd or 4th year that we've done it, and we've always had a tremendous participation rate. So we're excited to be able to offer this every spring. Also, throughout the year, we offer a program called Me and My Community. If you have students who get 20 or more hours of community service, they can get a certificate. They can put this onto their resume. They can put it onto their college applications. It doesn't matter if they're a kindergartner all the way up to grade 12. Our point is to help students develop character, be part of their community, and give back to their community. So check out our program, Me and My Community. It's completely free, and we just want to get students out in their community helping others. And then lastly, like Dr. Ray said, we have an exciting end of the year workshop in May. There's going to be a forum of educators, including me and Dr. Ray, and also one of our board members, Dr. Salam, who is very experienced. And we're going to answer any questions that you have. We will do the questions live when you raise your hand, but also at the end of this workshop, we're going to be posting our survey so you can get your certificate. And in that survey, you can pose any question that you would like. Any question about education, anything that's going on right now in technology like ChatGPT, licensure, accreditation, school improvement, curriculum, or instructional practices, it doesn't matter. So we're excited to be able to offer that workshop. It's going to be May 20th at the same time, 9 o'clock Saudi time, or 12 o'clock Denver time, Mountain time, where Dr. Ray and I are at. And so hopefully we'll see you all there, and come with some of your good questions. Post your questions in the survey, and that survey will be posted at the very end of this workshop. And you have to make sure you fill that survey out in order to get a participation certificate for this workshop. So Dr. Ray, I think I got everything, didn't I?
Oh, I think so. And please know, we need your questions, because we will design our question and answer period on May 20th based on the questions that you ask. It might be something that we haven't done a workshop for this year. It might be something that has come up recently in your position, but we really do. So hopefully you will fill out these questions. Dr. Salam, Dr. Jake, and myself will be the 3 people dealing with these issues. But if we have your questions in advance, we certainly can do some preparation for that workshop. So we hope that you will be part of that, and it's your opportunity to kind of direct what we will be doing in that workshop. I'm very excited today to introduce to you Miss Trina Angelone. We first met Trina in NCPSA. That's the National Council that approves accrediting agencies in the United States. And Array Global is approved by NCPSA as a partner organization. So we're thrilled with that. But when we first started meeting with Trina, we found out that she not only represents her organization in NCPSA, but her organization is extremely helpful in helping with several issues, including staff development and credentialing. She's the chair and the CEO of an organization called Global Ed. And I'm encouraging her to talk a little bit about Global Ed while she's doing her presentation today, because I think it's something that you might want to put on your to-do list to check into Global Ed and the services that they offer. Because again, we are associated with many organizations, and we try to bring the ones to you that will most help you in your work. So today, actually the title of her presentation, but I'm sure that it's not totally inclusive, but it'll be future visioning, credentialing for an innovated 21st century learning environment. And so Trina, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And you'll need to unmute yourself or nobody will hear you. And we're ready for you. Trina, welcome, and thank you for coming today.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I'm delighted, Ray and Jake, that you've invited me to participate today. And to be honest, I'm so excited that we have so many people from around the world in my role, both with NCPSA as the training arm, and also in my role as the chairman for the digital learning globally for NCPSA and 26 accrediting organizations that are part of that group. I get to travel a lot and really see some fabulous things going on around the world. At the end of this month, or the first week in January, I'll be first week in January. Oh my goodness, my head's gone, right? So the first week in May, I'll be at the Education World Forum in London. And if any of you are around, I'd be really, really delighted to meet with you. At the end of the month, the end of May, I'm going to be heading off to Senegal. I'm actually presenting at the Ministerial Roundtable, which takes place the day before the eLearning Africa conference, where I'm presenting as well. So I'll be at the Ministerial Roundtable presenting a lot of the information you're going to hear today. So I'm testing stuff out on you, right? Want lots of feedback, wants lots of response from you. I've got that conference coming up. And then I'm actually chairing some conversations with ministers from around the globe, particularly from the Middle East and North Africa, looking at what's going on in education, some of the really, really great things that are happening. And if any of you are planning to be at the eLearning Africa conference at the end of the month, please do send me an email. I put the information in the chat. You'll see it in the PowerPoint, which Jake will send out to you. At the end of this, I'll have the PowerPoint ready. And because it's coming from Global Ed, you're also going to have a chance to earn some CEUs for today's conference, those continuing education units, because we ourselves are also an accredited e-learning services provider. So in my work with Global Ed, it's an adult education training program or platform. We do teacher credentialing, we do teacher certifications, lots of great things coming on that from Dr. Ray and Dr. Jake on opportunities that we'll have to work with you and your schools on a unique certification that will be recognized not only by Array, but also by many of the other global accrediting agencies, which is great for your schools, great for you as individuals, and you'll get these digital wallets that will start to put in some stackable credentials. So more on that to come. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Is that okay with you, Jake? All right, we'll get started.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. All right.
And I hope you talk a little bit more too about the certification process and where that is, where it's done at, and how that whole process works, because there are comments in there on Facebook and on our chat too. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Sounds good. So let me share this with you. All right. Are we loaded? Can you see my general introduction slide? Yep. Okay, super. I did put my information into the chat, but you have a chance here to see this. And let me get myself moving then in presentation mode. I hope you can see it. So again, Global Ed is the organization, and just a little fun kind of activity. So have a look at these, you know, some great movies. I'm giving away my age, right, by not having anything recent on here, but some great movies. And if you think about these, some of these movies, you know, you've got Everest, War Room, Frozen, you know, for the kids, All Is Lost, The Wolf of Wall Street, The Missing Picture, Inside Out, Blended. And you look at these and they're all just titles, right? So if I was to say to you, looking at all of those tell a story, right? And so every one of us in our schools and in our careers has a story. And the question is, what's your story? When you're introducing yourself, what are you actually, what are you saying about your school? What are you saying about your career? What are you saying about where you want to be in life, right? It's really, really interesting that if I look at those titles, I could create a story about education. The train wreck, okay, the names of the movies are in green here, right? The train wreck of education today leaves teachers feeling frozen. Administrators sit in the war room. It feels like dirty wars. The Wolf on Wall Street knocks on the door. We've got a blended approach. It's like conquering Everest every day. You're on a hard climb. So there's lots of fun ways that we can look at our jobs and look at where we are as administrators, as educators, as education leaders. But in reality, it's about telling a story, right? It's about the story of my career and how my career fits into the story of my school, how my school sells itself to the local community or to the community at large, those around us, to our customers, to our clients and our students. And on a larger scale, where does our organization fit in? How does our organization become part of the story that is part of the fabric of the culture and the academic journey that our children are on? There are three major challenges facing the world of education coming up. And at any point, raise your hands or stop me as I'm going along, right? I don't like to have the monologue, right? So, we're looking at these big changes that all global all of our countrywide or ministries are looking at. We're looking at the problem facing education and credentialing. We don't have enough schools. Now, America, the US is quite different because we're going to have a population deficit, right? So the American population is only 4.7 of the global workforce, less than 5% of the overall. And those of us working in the US tend to think from an American or US perspective. We're US centric, but in reality, the rest of the world is actually much larger in population and in business modeling and so on from all the rest of us. So in order to really look at this properly, we have to put that in perspective. The rest of the world outside of the US actually doesn't have enough schools. There's a massive teacher shortage. We have a teacher shortage in the United States, 30% in many, many states. But globally, we know enough children have been born that over the next 18 years, as they cycle through that population, as we see, I've got a section on this too, that population bulge that is happening around the globe, there aren't enough educators. We as a business, as an employee group, as a group of professionals, we are in high demand. That's really, really important to know from us personally, but I think more importantly, from a mission perspective, we have to understand that the world is going to rely on us to do more. We're going to have to do it for more children, and we're going to have to be better than we've ever been before. And so how do we understand our role as educators in leading in this new era? It's not enough just to get a degree. It's not enough just to be a veteran educator. We've actually got to step up. We've got to understand that our job, our profession is a profession, and we need to constantly be refining our craft, getting better at our skills, realizing that the world is changing, and how we did things 10 years ago, how we did things during COVID, that's not going to be enough. It's frightening, but it's exciting. It's a challenge, right? For all of us to step up and to realize as the world shifts, as jobs change, skills change, and there's a massive shortage of educators, we have become the profession that is probably the most critical profession in the world, because we are the ones that will provide the opportunity for the rest of the world to have doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs, right? We are the ones that are going to actually drive the education and provide the support for the educational journey for a whole new generation. And guess what? There are not enough of us. There are not enough educators out there today. We're 30% short. And as the population increases, it's a huge, huge challenge. And I believe my professionals, my peers, are ready to step up. I believe that we have what it takes to educate ourselves, to learn new skills, and to transition. We're not stuck in the 17th century. We are not stuck with our chalkboards or whiteboards or anything else. We have the knowledge, we have the skill set, and we have the tenacity to be able to drive ourselves to new heights. And so that's kind of some of the things that we're going to be talking about today, right? So we look at in this blue box here, the whole idea of quality training, of university programs. The traditional way of doing things is not going away, but now it changes in how we actually consume it. And that's the difference. You know, we used to have just traditional brick and mortar school. Now we've got online and we've got blended. So how we consume degrees, how we consume learning changes. We've got stackable micro credentials as the way of the future. 30-minute chunks, 1-hour chunks, 10-hour chunks. However we put those together, we have to be able to stack our learning, get credit for what we're doing, and allow that credit, allow that micro credential to be meaningful, map it against some standards. And this is I know this is a lot of information. We'll go in detail in a few minutes, but map all those micro creds against some frameworks which are acceptable to your accrediting organization. Your accrediting organization says, yes, these micro credentials will align. And when they start to align, now you make yourself ready to teach in a new era. Lots more to come on that one. So specifically designed micro credentials to meet the needs of the new workforce, your new workforce as educators, not just the world of work the kids are going into. Our world as educators is also changing. And very often we don't get credit for being very adaptable, and people don't realize how much change we're actually going through. So education credentialing itself is changing as an industry and as a group. Let's look over to the green area. This is the second chunk, a second area we'll look at. And this is digital transformation of the world at large, right? So many things before COVID we did, paper pencil, we did with people going into a store, people going into a business, and many jobs nowadays, of course, can be offered in an online environment. So if that's the case, it means that the questions of bandwidth, technology, access to technology, and all of these things become critical. If you don't have a plan in place, if your country doesn't have a plan, if your region doesn't have a plan, if your group of schools or your district or your diocese or whatever kind of a network you work in, if they don't have a plan for the digital transformation of your organization, then you're behind, right? So part of what we'll do in some of the trainings that are ahead is make that training available, right? Having training available so that you can begin to plan to have a smooth implementation for that digital transformation. You know, and I know that during COVID, we all threw stuff online. I've been in the online business. I've had online schools in 26 countries for the last decade. I've worked in things like launching the University of Miami online program 10 years ago. I launched the world's largest Catholic online schools network a dozen years ago as well. So a lot of experience in online learning. And you know, and I know that the whole world is throwing stuff into a learning management platform or some kind of an online source. It's not really high quality online education, right? It was just throwing digital assets out there. So as we start to fine tune that, because we know online's not going away now, right? How do you give every child access to a high quality online or blended learning environment? How do you train educators to really understand high quality education, high quality e-learning, high quality content? So what worked in a brick and mortar classroom, sticking those PDFs up into an online environment, you know, and I know that's not really good online learning, right? That's just taking old assets, old product, throwing it into online. We've got to be able to do better for ourselves and for the students that we are entrusted with in their educational career. So looking at that digital transformation and doing some planning, Dr. Ray and Dr. Jake, we have a lot of content for the schools. That's why we've partnered together, thousands of courses that are available for you at your fingertips to be able to pick and choose, because sorry, just as one size does not fit all for our students, it doesn't fit all for our educators. We're all at different places in our personal journeys for learning, and we're all at we've different needs. So the math teacher doesn't need the same content the language arts teacher does. The French teacher doesn't need the same content as the physics teacher. So We all have different needs. E-learning and blended learning can really help us with that. So that's part of the digital transformation, not just throwing a computer or a cell phone access to people, but really planning what is digital transformation. Whose needs am I meeting? Am I meeting the needs of the students, meeting the needs of the educators who are training the students, meeting the needs of the school? There's a lot of things in play, and I'm so happy to be able to work with Dr. Ray and Dr. Jake on designing plans that are customized to meet the needs of your individual organizations. And to be honest, things that won't cost us an arm and a leg, because I've been in education so long. I understand that in education, we want it all. We want the champagne taste and the caviar dreams, but many times we're working with a tap water budget, not even a Coca-Cola or a beer budget. We're working with tap water budgets. So we want to be able to do the best we can to be efficient, to be economical, and to make sure that what we offer is of value. And it brings value to you, the user, and brings value to your students.
Trina, could I just
Yeah.
ask a quick question?
Yes.
Would you just give a short definition of blended learning? Because I think, and we're getting wonderful comments from the people about the value of your presentation, but we also got a comment that, we're also dealing with much of the world that does not have access to internet. And,
You're absolutely right.
So could you just kind of address that just very briefly?
Absolutely, and actually, that's the premise. That's what I shouldn't be announcing this yet because it's not ready. It'll be ready at the end of the month, right? So I'm actually I have a book that we're giving away, a free ebook on bandwidth, accessibility, and all of the things that countries need to know on how to be efficient, how to get better use out of their internet. Because you're right. So many people don't even have access right now, right? And the gaps are widening. So you've got rural countries that have zero access, and you've got some places where they have so much access, they're just throwing money after it, right? But that's not sustainable. Even the US, we're throwing money after expanding bandwidth, but it's not really not the route. The American way is actually not the way. There are much more efficient ways of doing it. So I will have a book out, and all of your schools and people will have access to that with a roadmap on some of those things, very practical stuff, and we're giving that away, just as a lot of data, 20 years worth of data and research that will be available for the world. So to go back to the question on, blended learning versus brick and mortar, right? So brick and mortar is your traditional school. Children show up, the teacher's in the classroom, and the delivery method is generally the teacher is the purveyor of knowledge. The textbook is where we find the information. And even in the brick and mortar classroom, we may have some technology, we have events, we have activities. Everything is focused on providing the right environment to nurture the child in a physically connected space. A blended learning, and there are, theoretically, you can go look at the Christensen Institute, you can look at multiple models of blended learning. Blended learning has lots of different models, and actually I can do a workshop for you on blended learning if you want that. But in essence, blended learning is when you do a blend of online using digital assets, materials and resources, and even adults, versus time in the brick and mortar classroom. So you have people in the brick and mortar classroom, and maybe 1 period a day, 2 periods a day, they take an online class to supplement or to enhance the work they're doing. For example, a small school doesn't have access to an advanced placement calculus teacher, but the school in the next town or the next country over in your network has a fabulous calculus teacher that gets great results on the AP. Why can those children not access that great resource through your network? And so you give them an online class with that person during the scheduled time. That's one example. Another example of blended learning may be where you have a lab and the students are going in and a whole class at a time, or a group of students, they'll rotate through a schedule that allows them to have some online classes, access to technology, and the teacher will infuse those technology resources into the classroom and the kids will rotate. Another type of blended learning, I'll go, there are 6 or 7 models of this, right, that are recognized by the theorists and the researchers. So another model on that blended learning may actually be, with the students self-select. So a student may say, I'm coming into the brick and mortar classroom and I'm going to do 4 periods in the morning. This is a very common European or a Western model, is, and I believe in Australia as well, I've seen a little bit of it, but they come into the classroom and the students will do 4 hours in the morning in the brick and mortar classrooms. Then lunchtime they'll leave and they'll go out and they'll go to a community college class. They will go to an online class. They'll go to an internet-based a distance learning program of some sort. We used to use this model as a full-on brick and mortar classroom with career and technical classes. People often did an internship. So that idea of blending the service model is really what blended learning is. There are many variations, and there's no such thing as one that is better than the other. It's really about what works for your school, what works for the students, and what best meets the needs of the child getting everything that they need. Multiple ways, multiple models, and we can certainly do a workshop on that if you want to learn more about that one. So I'll pop all over here to this, the orange box you can see on the screen, and this one is really about something that we don't think about often, because you and I, we tend to go about our jobs and we go into work, we enjoy the kids and we enjoy our schools, we enjoy our leadership teams, and we live for this week, this month, or this calendar, or this school year, right? We have our semester. We have our semester's worth of lessons. We've got our semester exams. We have our activities. We've got our festivities. We've got our calendar that drives us. And every year we repeat. But underpinning all that is a shift that's happening in the world. And actually, I'm going to say that this is a seismic shift. It is a population growth that is happening in countries around the world. And happy to connect, if anybody wants more information, I'm happy to connect with UNESCO figures, looking at all of the real stats out there, looking at McKinsey reports. And all of this is about declines in certain countries, including the US, where just children have not been born, right? Families are going to 1 child and so on, and you've got a population decrease. But we have a massive youth bulge coming in the next decade in many, many countries around the world. The children have already been born. We already know they're born. They haven't hit the school system yet, you know, at age 4, age 5, wherever you are in the world. They haven't hit us yet, but they're born. So when that bulge, as they call it, the youth bulge has been described, as that starts to come through the school system, you're going to see populations that are double and triple what they are right now in certain countries, which is, if we already have problems of overcrowded conditions and we already have problems of maybe food shortage, water shortage, and so on, watch when this population starts to move through and expects to get education, right? Education is actually a huge opportunity for us to make an impact on the world, or to change, or to really, really impact the world. If we look at it, when you have access to be able to train more numbers or more people, or you have access to be able to provide work for people, you can change the outcome, the global outcome. You can impact the GDP. And so many people, we're sitting in schools and we don't realize, we don't think about the massive impact and the opportunity we're going to have in the next decade in these regions to really make a huge, huge difference for the world. If we fail to do our digital transformation, if we're just looking at the building being the place people can come in, we are putting a cap on the number of people we serve. Let me repeat that. If we continue with just our brick and mortar schools, we are capped at a capacity for X number of kids that fit in the building. If you have the option of also layering in some blended or some online opportunities, you can double or triple your impact. You now will be able to service more people. Why is it important to service more people? Because when more people in these areas where there is a youth bulge actually are able to access our services, actually become educated, they then have the means to go out and find work. Remote work will allow them to stay where they are and bring money in that will drive that cycle in a global economy. I know that's heavy. I know that's a lot of thoughts for a Saturday afternoon. Keep that in the back of your mind, because as we start now, Ray, any questions on that? Because I'll switch to the next slide now and really get started.
I think that there was one question, Trina, about how do we get owners and principals and directors bought into doing more of this professional development, and because some of them are just trying to make enough money to run the school or to make money for their own selves. And so how do we get them to buy into this a little bit more and see this ultimate vision that you've been describing?
Yeah, so I think, Jake, I think that's really where you and Ray come in providing these resources to school leaders. So one of the things that I will do is a school leaders and school owners workshop for you. The platforms and services we've already connected through your organization. Over the next few weeks, that will be set up. Everyone will have access to it. We'll have a very, very low cost entry level, as you know. Minimal amounts of money. It's very, very low. It's dollars in a month per user. It's nothing expensive at all, at least as entry level. These live seminars are available as well. And as people begin to access this learning, it's a journey, right? All of us are on this together. And so I think that you and Ray have actually done the first steps. So I would love to be able to say, let's have a school owners, a school leaders, administrators workshop. They'll learn their CEUs as well, right? And get them started, because you're right. When the teachers see it, because they're in the rooms with the kids and the families and have these great relationships with their families, our educators see the whole process, and they are the ones that really, really fully understand this, right? So let me look at, when I'm speaking on behalf of Global Ed, I'm not talking about just our company. We're the training and the e-learning service provider, but we actually have, technologies and technology part. We're part of a massive global alliance. And when we bring you the network, we're bringing you alliance, and we're bringing you curriculum partners, training partners, technology partners. So for example, if your school doesn't have internet or adequate internet, let's say things start swirling around when you're trying to do something in your classrooms, we have groups and organizations that actually will do a free assessment for you. There's no cost. They'll give you the tools, they'll give you the resources, and they'll do an assessment, and they'll tell you, you know what, for a very minor investment, a couple of $100, you can put this box in there and that will help double your bandwidth access. But there's no cost on the training. There's no cost on the assessment. There's no cost on those. Those are the kinds of tools that the Alliance, because we've made a commitment to UNESCO and to the, the United Nations and e-Learning Africa group, the ministers, to be able to help advance and move some of these conversations, because without it, there's going to be massive struggles in the world if the educators themselves don't own our role. So this is my life's mission, right? When I came from Ireland 35 years ago to the US, I had a degree. I thought I was marvelous. I was head girl at my school. I had accelerated into college and everything else. And I came to Florida. And when I came to Florida, I was so, I thought I was going to take the world by storm. And there was no reciprocity for my degree or my credentials. And I couldn't believe it. I was floored. I went, what? But Florida's not even at the top of the food chain, back in the day. So I was like, what kind of place is this? I didn't understand. It was the first time in my academic career that I had come across an absolutely artificial roadblock. Nothing to do with me as an individual, nothing to do with me in my capacity as an educator or my degree or the school, Queen's University that I had graduated from. All of that was ready to go. But I had this artificial barrier, a policy that was in my way and stopped me. And so my mission at this point, after, I've had a really enjoyable, a great career, my mission is to help break down those barriers. And by doing this kind of work at the ministerial level, helping people around the globe to understand that educators are actually the most key group of professionals in any society. Without the educator to put the basic skills in, to drive ambition and to drive skills and to drive advanced learning. Without educators, the rest of it doesn't fall into place. You cannot move your society forward if you don't have high quality education. So it's imperative that schools own this initiative, that we own this for ourselves. This is, otherwise the world will do it to us, right? They'll tell us what we need to be doing. So for me, it's really, really imperative that the educational profession owns this. So I'm happy to grab hold of anybody's administrators, any of you that want me to meet with your administrative teams. Dr. Ray and Dr. Jake can set that up for us. So
Okay.
let's look.
And if I could just say one thing,
Yeah.
Trina, you're scaring me. I want you to know that. Because our job, we like to think our job is to help educators and help schools and so forth. But what you're really bringing to light here is it's a much bigger issue than just knowing your stuff and knowing how to teach and so forth. Because we do run into these issues that you've been talking about, and we have a future ahead of us. And I think Dr. Jake and I both are very committed to see what we can do as Array Global to move people in this direction. And in some cases, it's almost one by one. Hopefully we can do a lot of things in mass, but it's a very difficult situation, and it's totally different than it was before COVID, because that changed our whole thinking about education.
It really, really did. And so I don't mean to frighten you, but I think just putting this awareness out there is that we are much more important as a profession post-COVID than we ever were before. And this profession is the underpinnings of the future of the workforce as people shift, as we move for AI. I've been a little bit slow, so let me pop through a few slides here. And the big question I'm going to ask the whole way through this is, what happens if we don't take ownership of these changes, right? What happens if we don't change? And I'm going to give the example of, remember everybody had a little Nokia phone back in the day. Those of you who are young on board, you might remember, but they were the brand, right? That was the big one. They didn't do anything wrong. Their CEO is quite famous for saying, over a 5-year period, they went from #1 to being out of business. They didn't change. They didn't do anything. There was nothing wrong with it. But Apple just hit the market with a new marketing, new ideas, new concepts. And I believe in the business of education, we are there today. If we do not understand that our role as educators is pivotal in a new world, in this world of automation, we should not be fighting about ChatGPT or plagiarism and so on. We should be saying, what is our role in the world of AI? Because education itself is changing. Unless we want everybody to go out and just take online commercial courses, drop out of brick and mortar schools and everything else, that's where the world could go. We need to own the challenge of the future for ourselves, because we're that important in society today. So let's look at the global learner, right? Creating opportunities for lifelong learning. You know as well as I do that with AI and with the changes in the workforce, children who are in high school today, they're not going to go in and take a job and stay at the same job like we did for 30, 40 years, get a gold watch on the way out the door. Those days are gone. These children are going to come out, they're going to change jobs, because companies are coming and going, right? They're going to change jobs and change work 15 to 25 times. The statistics actually say the kids who are in kindergarten today, the 4 and 5-year-olds, they may change jobs more than twice a year, more than 40 or 50 times in their lifetime, which means they're really having to develop the skills as if they are a contract worker, which means they will be learning new skills, new jobs, new everything their entire lives. So the idea of us teaching and building content and building curriculum like we've used for the last 300 years, this is math, this is science, this is literature, these are the books I teach. English lit teacher, right? So I used to teach British lit. I taught the same books, taught the same poems, taught the same everything. Can't do that anymore. It has to be relevant to the world the kids are going into, right? Because here we're going to do early education into ongoing training for jobs, for college, into retraining. And that cycle of retraining and education is now lifelong. So we have to look forward and look at what's happening globally, what's happening within our organizations, identify the gaps, and then start to set the context for a new era. There are lots of great sites. I'm not going to go into them today. All of the data and the research is going to be on this one. Just make a note of this as you're saying what's happening globally. You're going to see at this site when I send this PowerPoint out, you will have so much research and data on a changing world, changing dynamics, the changes in higher ed, and a lot of things that are happening around us. the reason we have to have this conversation today is about the world of work, right? So I mentioned this quickly. The one stat I haven't talked about here is this stat. By 2030, 40% of the jobs that we know will be gone. They're replaced. 60% of the jobs will have 30% of the work in those jobs replaced. These are not Trina stats, right? These are all coming from places like McKinsey and some of the great research firms in the world. So that means that the next decade, as automation starts to become deeply embedded in all of our processes, the actual work is changing. The jobs are changing. And our job as educators is not to say that what we've been doing is wrong, but we must understand that the skill sets and how students learn, probably the most important thing you'll be able to teach them is how to learn, how to adapt, how to synthesize information. So it's a different kind of focus, because you can pick up a cell phone, you get your cell phone, you can find anything in 30 seconds. Information itself is actually no longer critically the value. If you think about it, the only place for information years ago was a textbook or a set of encyclopedias. Then we added some online sources. The key now is, how do you trust what's online? So we've got to teach students to be critical thinkers like we've never taught them to think before, how to use information, and so on. There's certain knowledge that you have to have as a base to be able to make those decisions. So traditional education always will have its value, but you've got to do more. That is no longer adequate as a curriculum. You've got to layer in these new skills. And I'll go back, look at my questions. Do our leaders understand this is real in schools, right? Do our schools prepare students for this world? And do our leaders understand that this is real? Because many times the educator will get it, but the school leader, school owner doesn't quite understand the value of really knowing what they're doing for the kids. Some of this is great information about the US. You'll find the same map for your country. When I send this out, notice that this research comes from McKinsey, and it shows you workforce displacement up until 2030. And so when you look for workforce displacement, McKinsey, the Global Institute, and you can see where you've got growth, and actually we're halfway through this, right? 2017 to 23, we can see some of these areas are growing, but what it means is all these other areas are losing jobs. Work is disappearing. And so you'll see that around the globe. This is an example in the US. You'll see this around the globe. And the question is, a lot of the work that young people used to do, we see like in the US, for example, kids used to get a summer job, kids used to get work and so on, or they used to all work after school. Those jobs don't exist anymore. Why? Because one iPad and one person at the checkout is all it takes for what used to be 10 people, right? So a lot of that work itself is even gone. The kind of jobs that are out there as well, the question for you is my traditional curriculum relevant, or should I be layering other things in? So, these are all of where jobs used to be. Notice a massive decline. Look at the huge increase in some of these jobs. And again, you'll see the stats. I'll send these out to you. So this is where we tie all this back into, why is innovation and teacher preparedness and teacher support ongoing? Why is it crucial? Are our programs, is our curriculum, our teachers and administrators really ready for this? And we look at the skill sets. We need higher cognitive skills. We need social and emotional skills. Let's face it, if I'm going to be told 20, 30 times over that my job contract just ran out because I'm no longer getting a job for 30 years, I've got to be pretty thick-skinned, right? So I've got to have an emotional maturity that says rejection is not about me personally, it's the job contract's over, right? How do I take that? How do I turn that skill I learned in the last 6 months or a year working on a contract? How do I parlay that into going out and seeking the next contract and so on? So even that mindset, that understanding of building up children, young people who are resilient, who understand marketing and entrepreneurial skills. How do I build young entrepreneurs? All of those skill sets, they're not part of a traditional curriculum, right? So how do we begin to look at that? And that's where your role as educators is really, really important. How can I help you to take on some new training, to explore these questions, and to really look at some of these things in earnest, and look at entrepreneurship, advanced IT skills. It used to be that when we asked a school, or we asked teachers, and we said, you know, how about coding? And they'd go, oh yeah, that's the after school club, or that's the computer science teacher up the hall. Well, no, it's not, right? The kindergarten, the first and second grade, the third grade teacher, you are the basis. You are the one setting the base. You are building the foundation of young coders. Why? You're teaching early math skills. You're teaching critical thinking. You're teaching kids how to question everything. You are teaching the mindset of programming and coding. And if you don't teach that and instill that search, that quest for knowledge, that ability to, you know, put 2 + 2 and not always get 4, 2 + 2 when stuck together might make a 22, you know, looking at things from different angles, looking at things and questioning and reasoning skills. Those are early skill sets. So there's lots of things that we need to be rethinking what we're teaching and how we're teaching in order to make sure our kids are ready to absorb new content.
Trina, I have to interrupt once again. Sorry. If you'll go back to that previous slide, there was a question asked about robots and replacing. The thing that's really sticks out on this slide is you will look at the blue places of the things that are becoming more important: higher cognitive, social and emotional, and technology. Look down there at basic cognitive and physical and manual. Those are decreasing, and we as educators have to understand that those areas that you've pointed out in the blue there that are becoming more important are really what we need to be about. Robots cannot do that.
That is the essence of it. You were right. Yeah.
They can do the other, maybe. And, you know, I've just recently been looking at ChatGPT and absolutely amazed at the things that you can do on that. But they cannot do the higher cognitive, the social and emotional, and the technology. And we as educators have to really get that in our heads, that we have a very high responsibility to lead our students into those areas.
Absolutely. So for example, you know, when we say computer science and we talk about, well, we all teach computer science, right? What do we teach? We teach basic data inputting and processing. We teach basic literacy, numeracy, community, how to email, how to use PowerPoint, how to do all those basic essential things that we teach. But actually, those aren't enough, right? Those can all be replaced by the machine. ChatGPT is example, right? But complex information processing, interpretation, you know, the leadership, managing people, advanced IT skills, right? So these skills are all increasing at a tremendous rate. You see the change in the number of hours worked and the percentage. These are all going down. Human beings aren't doing this work anymore, right? The numbers of hours and the billions of hours worked. You can see these physical and manual labor going down, basic cognitive going down, and then you see this increase. It's fascinating. And this is all just data driven. This is not stuff we're making up. This is stuff that we've known as society. All of the research institutes have actually been doing this now for over a decade, but it's only because of the catalyst of COVID that it really made us in education step up as a profession and say, things have changed. Some things are a little different here, right? So if I go over to this one and I look at, you know, and ask a question, how's your organization responding, right? We're being asked to deliver distance learning on new platforms on a previously unimagined scale. A couple of years ago, there was a survey. There's even more data out here now, right? But India, Australia, 15 other countries, coding is required of all kids, middle school and high school. You know, a lot of countries have started to implement some of these things. And we look at professional development. 3 years ago, people were asking for building comfort with tech, cultivating social emotional learning, well-being, how to teach using video, not just throw a video up there in the classroom, how to improve student engagement with these new technologies, how to combine print and digital lessons, how to support at-risk students in this new age. So teachers know they want more. And that's why, you know, I'm delighted to be able to work with your organization and with individual schools, because when we look at the numbers, the staggering numbers of this population growth between now even and, you know, 2050, it's billions of people. It's huge. Are we ready to understand, as the world is changing towards digital, we're getting more and more and more people. So you've got two things happening to us at once. And so if I look at, this is a group of international students were all surveyed, all the international kids coming to US universities. They were surveyed on, with AI and the age of automation, what subjects do you want to go to study at university? And my question in looking at these is your curriculum ready? Are your teachers ready to prep them for this? And are your students going to be ready for the world they're going to live in? So 424 of the group surveyed said they wanted to study artificial intelligence. 404 wanted cybersecurity. 356 wanted entrepreneurship, data engineering, marketing, media, and social media, renewable energies, innovation, social media influencing, right? Cryptocurrency, of course, this was 2 years ago, so crypto was a big thing. Apps design, robotics, blockchain, 3D printing, machine learning. Do you see anything there that says I'm going for a liberal arts degree? I want to have an English degree. I want an accounting degree. No, it didn't even rank, right? All our traditional subjects didn't even rank. They don't even show up. So today's kids who are college bound, we're looking for something that we don't even teach for the most part in a general K-12 curriculum. So how are we preparing them? They're finding all of this. They're finding this on their own social media. They're going to TikTok, they're going to WhatsApp, they're going to Facebook, they're going to WeChat. Whatever the social media platforms are, kids are finding their learning on the social media platforms. They're hearing the topics, they're understanding that the world is changing, but for the most part, they're not getting that from us. And again, my challenge to you is, how do you step up your game as a school? How do you realize as a school, you must prevent yourself from becoming obsolete by understanding, by elevating your education professionals. Your professionals in your buildings are your greatest asset, not the building, not the technology, but the educator themselves, who can step up and really grab onto this new era, is actually the most valuable asset in any school building. Because educators who continue to learn model for the students continuous learning, but they are full of knowledge that can be passed on to these kids and can help drive this shift inside the schools. And I realize I've been rambling and talking for an awful lot. This is really looking at AI, the age of automation, right? How does it drive meaningful, relevant transformation? So our mindset, even our owners, our school admin, and I've been one, right? So I've been there, I understand it. I've taught, I've been an administrator, I've been a superintendent, I've been a school owner, I've been a founder, I've run global networks, been there, done that for a lot of them. Some I've done well, some I've been abysmal at, but I always learn from the mistakes made, right? So that's about mindset, right? We've got to really understand a mindset shift has happened in the world, and it's very much about design thinking. What are we doing for our schools? How are we designing it? What are we designing curriculum wise? Everything is now focused. We've got we're not textbook driven anymore, because there's not enough in any given book. Multiple assets are needed to educate a child today. We have to take into consideration the changing nature of the world of work our kids are going into, and all the research that's available. Years ago, we had an encyclopedia, or we had Wikipedia online, or we had, Google or Yahoo search. Now we have so much high quality research, it's overload. How do we discern from that research and look at the changing world of work? What are the new skill sets required, not only for our kids going into the world of work or into the world of university? What's required from our educators? Are we doing more to support our educators, to give them the time, to give them the access to the content and the training? What are we doing to support these new skills? What are the global trends? And we don't always want to follow trends, right? A lot of trends are, for want of a better word, rubbish, right? They're just trending, they're trendy. So we want to make sure that we are following best practice and that we are doing research-driven work. Education models, lots of new models out there. Same old won't cut it. What are the models? Are we training on the models? Are we sharing? Are we having these kinds of collaborative conversations? And to be honest, on a smaller scale, because I'd love to be able to interact with people that are here as well, and answer questions and really think through some things that are relevant to you individually. What are the new technologies and the new tools, and are they available, and at what scale? And how do we get them? How do we measure effectiveness, right? Because going in now to do a school evaluation with your paper and pencil check sheet It's not really relevant anymore. You're measuring different things. In an old classroom, you know, we wanted everybody in neat rows. We wanted certain things. We wanted the teacher to ask leading questions. Well, that's really not great today, right? So we want to know, how are the kids learning? What are they learning? How are they engaging? Do you have an engaged class? Lots of ways, but how do you measure it? How are you measuring effectiveness? And that looks different in a blended learning classroom. Are you collaborating? Schools are not islands. We should be collaborating with schools in multiple alliances in order to get the best for our teachers and the best for our kids. What are the impacts of AI? How are we communicating internally? How are we communicating with our community? Because we've got multiple communities with parents, everybody else. And then where do we fit on the global scale? Because again, there are so many opportunities for us to communicate globally the work that we're doing. And then the question in red that I hope is the takeaway: what happens if nothing happens? If you just remain exactly as you are today, what happens to you as an individual, as a professional, and what happens to the school? Are you relevant in the next decade if we don't make an effort to understand the world that's shifting around us? Any questions? And how am I on time? Because I just flipped to another one on blended learning, since you had asked me about blended learning.
We're just about up to the top of the hour, and I'm sure there will be questions when we turn it into the question section.
All right, so I'll stop with this last slide because there was a question on blended learning. So I want to make sure I get to this, right? So in blended learning, you've got research information. You've got the ability to communicate with other people. You've got to be able to access online texts and resources as well as what you have in your classroom. You've got to be able to receive and send alerts and reminders. You've got to be able to set calendars, manage time, and manage resources. You've got to be able to collaborate, kid to kid, kid to teacher, teacher to family, whatever it is, whatever that networking is, collaboration. Externally, maybe it's links, all the schools in your network. Maybe we're doing collaborative work with the schools in different countries. If we're doing projects, or we're doing shared resources, shared teachers, all of those things happening in external communications. Flexing schedules inside the school. Is that possible? Or are you on a very strict 7 or 9 period a day schedule, or a block schedule, and that's the only schedule? There's no flexibility, because not everybody learns at the same time. As you know, we're not all great at 7 in the morning. We're not all great at 4 in the afternoon. You know, is there flexibility? Is there an opportunity if an online class goes over for someone to really stay? If a lab is so exciting in a chemistry lab and the kids all want to stay, is that flexible? Is there flexibility once a month, once a week, once a day, whatever it is, inside the school schedule? Are we scheduling outside of traditional school? Is there extended day? Is there nighttime classes? Are you in a boarding school and you're allowing the kids, or you're bringing them opportunities to do online classes outside of the schedule? Instead of having people come in to do SAT or ACT on a Saturday morning, are you offering them online classes beyond the normal day? Are you offering them college relationships, dual enrollment, college credit, preparation, all those kinds of things? Are you using video and online resources for self-learning, not just teacher directed? Is there an opportunity for self-learning? And for your educators, is there an opportunity for educators to self-learn, which of course, Ray and Jake, is part of the relationship we have, right? We've got those thousands of classes and resources ready for the educators to just go in and self-train and pick up on, because that's part of it. What we do for kids, we have to be able to say to teachers, we respect you enough that we're going to offer for you as well, right? Flex curriculum choices, curricular choices, and pacing. Not everybody works at the same pace, right? So do we have some flipped classroom options? Do we have things that allow children to not only listen to you in the classroom, but go home and play the lesson over? Can they access other resources to support the learning? Or for those that really need to hear it once before they can go in and have a conversation with you, can they go ahead? Can they study in advance and then come in and have a conversation with you? Because we all learn differently, right? And then what does the blended learning environment mean for teachers and for administrators? And I think that's kind of the first set of questions was, we're all not going to adapt the same way. There are going to be pioneers out there. There are people that are the trailblazers. They'll out there, they'll run, they'll go really, really well. And there are people that are just like, I got a couple of years to go. I'm not going to be bothered with this. I can finish up my career. Or there will people that will say, you know what, I can get a whole new career after, if you're like me, right? So you can say, oh, this online stuff is great. I can extend my career for the next 20 years without leaving the house. So there's lots of things, great conversations to have with the educators and the administrators around what do these changes really provide us by way of additional supports and additional resources and, you know, new objectives or new learning. And then again, I hate to be a pain with the question, what happens if nothing happens, if you don't begin to understand and embrace these things? You know, what happens? What happens to your school? What happens to you as a professional as the world around you is shifting and changing? So that's just a little introduction. There are like 100 other slides on multiple topics, so I'll stop there for today, and I'm available to you for questions and certainly for follow-up if you want anything at all that you're interested in having a chat about. So I'll stop sharing and open it up for you, Ray.
Okay, great. We'll take just a couple of questions. May I make one suggestion to everybody first? This presentation is so vital to the future of education. I encourage you all to find a way in your school to take this presentation. It's all recorded. You can have copies of it, of all the slides, and show it as it is to your staff. And for those of you who are saying, what about owners and people, you know, they need to see this too. And I don't think there's any information in here that we would argue with at all. So number one, I would encourage you all to try to make this part of some kind of a professional development opportunity for your whole teaching staff. The second thing is Trina has been very, very generous in sharing her personal contact information, saying how she would work with individual schools or individual teachers. And so I encourage you, you have her email address and they'll be on these slides. But I do encourage you to ask her questions. We really, we're at the top of our hour right now. And Dr. Jake, I think maybe we can take a couple questions.
I was thinking, Dr. Ray, we could do the words of wisdom now and then post the survey and then take questions as people are filling out their survey. Like
okay, let me just say something that I read recently, and it goes along so well with the essence of Trina's subject today. There were lots of questions, for instance, about robots and, you know, can we make technology work and all that kind of stuff. The role of the teacher is so vital. And you know, my parting thought that I want to leave with you is something that I read recently. It's this: students work the very hardest for teachers that they like and respect. So when you ask, well, how do I get the students to like and respect me? The answer is easy. I like and respect them first. And that's really key to our role as educators.
Ray, I think that's marvelous, because a lot of the questions I'm flipping through the chat right now, and the focus on the questions is, you know, that technology will never overtake the human teacher, right? Because there is a role. And my focus today is all these things are changing around us, but you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, the most important thing is the value of the teacher. The teacher needs to be aware of these things. The school leadership needs to be aware of these things. And the role of the teacher is what lifts the human spirit, right? We are the ones that motivate. We are the ones that help people understand the technology. We are the ones that help the students realize how to use these technologies and when to choose not to use them, right? So the value and the importance of the teacher is just so critical. And to your point, having a real understanding of building relationships. When you get into the world of work that is run by all of these technologies, when the world of work is all about tech, the one thing that makes us unique is our ability to create relationships. And creating those relationships in the world of work and in children is absolutely critical. That's all about communicating. So thank you so much for even having me here with you today, and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Yeah, so in the chat, there is the post-workshop survey. Please make sure you fill it out. Add some questions that we can answer next month. Also, you can select in there if you're interested to learn more about global ed, and Trina will be in contact with you. And one question that came up actually on our Facebook feed, Trina, is how, I mean, you work with a lot of schools in many parts of the world, many countries, some countries that are a little bit more disadvantaged and schools that are disadvantaged. How do you think, what are some of the best ways that these schools can tackle some of the issues that you've brought up?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I have found in many of the relationships or many of the schools I'm working with, it's really, even in remote areas of the world, they are beginning to implement some of this blended learning. They're beginning to say, if we only have, X amount of bandwidth, and it means that only 6 computers at a time can go online, how do we take the best advantage? How do we take advantage? And those are extremes conditions, right? Where we have newly developing countries or regions of the world. So it's a matter of, to me, it's a matter of planning, right? It's being aware these things are out here. Then how do we put a plan in place that takes the most use or makes the best use of the assets you have? And I think really good teachers, really good educators at this point are critical. Because as long as the educators realize that they themselves have to learn more, we have to embrace these things. We have to understand them. When we know them and we understand them ourselves, we can help begin to plan. We can help support the students. And I know I didn't give you a great answer because I really want to dive into that question. But happy to engage, and I'm trying to be respectful for the time.
Absolutely. I think that would be something you could do a whole day workshop on.
Yeah.
One question that came up in the chat is just wanting to learn more about a teaching certificate, getting a diploma, and the process to do that. Maybe if you gave kind of a 30,000-foot overview on that, and then send them to the website.
Oh yeah. So I think you said at the beginning, we'll have we're actually going to do a dedicated landing page for Array, and all the schools will be in there. So over the next couple of weeks, once Dr. Jake and Dr. Ray get with us, we'll have that ready for you. So you don't have to hit the main website, but that way you can do school groups, school collaborations in your own organization. We do have a teaching certificate pathway. It's the GEDT. So that's a global ed teaching certificate. It's recognized around the world. Many ministries accept it, as well as countries. School networks and so on do as well, whether you're working with this accrediting organization or others. I don't want to promote others because we don't want people jumping, right, and moving from group to group. But then your organization is going to customize a set of classes as well that work for your group. But in the next couple of weeks, you should actually receive an opportunity to onboard in there. Then there's lots of free training. We've got CEUs that are of no cost to you. You can go in and, become Google certified if you want to. We've got some really cool classes too. Things like becoming a certified drone pilot. And you're thinking, why do I want to learn how to drive drones, right? Well, you may not, but your kids might want to take that class as part of, 90 hours or whatever as an elective. And so the curriculum's all there, everything's set. They can be certified. And guess what? Jobs around the world for Amazon or for all kinds of people on using drones, either as a photographer to deliver packages, there's all kinds of work comes out of what you think of as a single elective class, right? So lots of ways to really help young people to stack credentials for themselves that helps them pay for college, pay for other things, because let's face it, I think someone mentioned in here, we're not all high-end private schools, right? So there are a lot of kids that we will meet on our journey as educators that don't have the means or are on scholarships and so on, or attending public school. And so those kids need our support as much as anyone else. So our impact in the community and our impact to schools to be able to help kids do other things or realize that there are very non-traditional jobs that can help them bring work or bring extra money. Lots of things. Love to get creative with you. Sorry, Jake, I'm giving you very long answers to these questions.
No, that's okay. Yeah, there's a lot of information with that to unpack too. I think the main point is that if people have questions, they can reach out to us, reach out to Ray, me, or Trina, and we'll put you in the right direction and put you in contact with the right people. It looks like Farouz has his hand raised. So Farouz, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you, as always. So let me thank Dr. Angelone for taking us on a journey into the future of education. It is very thought-provoking and insightful. My question is the following. You know, as I was keeping an eye on the chat box, it was pretty much inundated with a cliched question, whether the robots could at some point replace the human teachers. To me, it is kind of cliched because, you know, I've been overhearing this point quite often. Well, I tried to add a slightly bit different perspective to this question. Instead of fearing that at some point we human teachers could be replaced by those AI or some kind of intelligent robots, how about we try to exploit the advantages of all those robots and turn them into a competitive and competent teaching race so that they would bring out the best in us. In other words, if I put it into a sporting world, they say for Messi to become Messi, there had to be Ronaldo. And for Ronaldo to become a Ronaldo, there had to be Messi. I hope my point is clear. Thank you.
Oh, and there had to be a Pele and a Maradona.
And Farouz, I've got to tell you, I've been a big fan of soccer lately, and I was able to trace back all of these things, people that you mentioned, say, wow, that's exactly right. For this to happen, you had something else had to happen before that. So it's a great example.
That is a great one. And so I'm going to hold that up and say that's a great example. It really, really is. And I'm from a family where my uncle got his cap for playing soccer for the country, right? We called it football, not soccer. But I'm originally from Northern Ireland, I think, as I said at the beginning. But your analogy is spot on, Farouz, because we cannot fear it. We're not the emu. We don't stick our head in the sand and say it's not happening around us, right? It is happening. It is there. We shouldn't be fighting it. We should be saying, how do I harness these tools? How do I use it? Because in reality, you can take a self-paced online class and earn a high school or a college credit. You can get a high school diploma by taking all online classes, no live teacher. Everything can be auto-graded. You can do hunt and peck software. So in reality, we're already there. We're already there with a low tier of things. The question is, do you want quality? What the live educator does is drive you higher, force you to think, question you, push you, get that tenacity. And I really think that you're spot on. How do we use those tools? And the first step is being aware of them. So I want to continue the conversation with you as well, and anyone else that wants to, because it's a great conversation to be having.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And
Dr. Ray, do we have time to take one more question?
We'll take one more, and then we're going to have to cut this off.
Okay, here we go. Ale Mayhew, sorry, I probably said your name wrong. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me the chance. I'm so delighted that I'm here to be with you today because I've got a very good insight on this AI, and I was just wondering how would be the human teachers fit when 40% of work will be replaced by AI. And like you said, we should be creative and more of the empathy or the human related stuff is obviously for teachers. But what would be the fate of the teacher? Are they going to be the human teacher? Are they going to be the main or the assistant in the classroom?
I think that's a great question. So that's my mission to all of you, is to help inspire you if I can, to help you understand that you must, as professionals, as a profession of educators, we must, because I'm one, right? I am as well. We must own this change. As an organization, we need to take control of it. We are the ones that need to say, this is the direction it's going. You cannot have high quality education without having the educator driving it with you. We facilitate the student conversation. We are the ones that are actually driving this dynamic change that's happening in the world. We've got to be those facilitators. You can have a student-centric learning with all the AI and all the technology and everything in the world to use it as an asset. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna go back to that slide that had design thinking. Who's designing the lesson to make sure learning is taking place? It doesn't happen by itself. You need the educator to drive, to design. That design thinking is so important. Teams of educators collaborating on behalf of students. It's an exciting world we're entering. It's a great time for education, but we must embrace it so that we own it and we elevate it. It's not just about sticking stuff into online or on a computer. It's not just about the AI tools. High quality learning will only happen if we design high quality work and really facilitate that learning, that dynamic learning for students.
Wonderful. So I think we better stop this now, and you all have Trina's contact information, and she said that she's very welcome to individual questions or emails from you, and so I encourage you to take advantage of that. And Dr. Jake, anything else before we close?
No, I'll see you at the May 20th workshop. We're excited to host you and answer all your questions.
Wonderful.
Thank you all so much. Pleasure
Thank you,
being
everyone.
here.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.